In the dying embers of a forgotten age, one witch's legacy refuses to fade. Ashes of the last witch unravels the haunting tale of power, betrayal, and the final spark of forbidden magic. From ancient covens to cursed bloodlines, we explore the remnants of a world where fire and shadow once danced as one. What secrets linger in the ashes, and what happens when someone dares to awaken them? Join us as we uncover the story of the last witch, whose flames may yet rise again. Welcome to Ashes of the Last Witch, where endings ignite new beginnings. Ashes of the Last Witch. In a time when the world was young and magic wove through every shadow and stream, witches were the unseen custodians of the balance between nature and mankind. They were feared, revered, and hunted in equal measure, for their power could heal or destroy, bless or curse. Among them, the last witch was not simply a figure of legend. She was the final spark of an ancient lineage, a woman whose name had been whispered through centuries, first in awe, then in fear. Her name was Ilara. She was born under a blood moon, in a village hidden deep within the verdant hollows, a place so cloaked in mist and ivy that many believed it existed only in dreams. Ilara's childhood was a mixture of solitude and wonder. Her mother, the previous last witch, taught her the languages of the wind, the trees, and the stars. She whispered of spells that could mend a broken heart, summon a storm, or speak to the spirits that lingered at the edge of the living world. But she also warned the price. Power came at a cost, and the human heart was fragile to temptation. The village elders, though wary, tolerated her family, for their magic kept the land fertile and disease at bay. Yet, beyond the safety of the hollows, fear of witches grew. Kingdoms, thirsty for control, had long since begun witch hunts. They spread propaganda of dark sorcery and devil's pacts, and any village rumored to harbor a witch would see torches and iron stakes descend with merciless intent. Ilara's mother knew the time would come when her daughter would be hunted, and so she prepared her for survival. At the age of 16, Ilara's life changed forever. A firestorm of betrayal consumed the verdant hollow soldiers, cloaked in the banners of the king, razed the village, dragging villagers to their knees. Amid the chaos, Ilara's mother was captured. In a final act of defiance, she entrusted Ilara with the Grimoire of Shadows, an ancient book containing centuries of magical knowledge, spells, and forbidden incantations. She whispered, "You are the last. Remember, power is not the absence of fear, it is the mastery of it." With that, she was gone, and the last witch's lineage ended, or so the world believed. Ilara fled, carrying only the grimoire and her wits. For years, she wandered through forests, deserts, and forgotten cities, honing her craft, learning to speak with spirits, bend elements, and conceal her presence from mortal eyes. She became a shadow herself, invisible in a world that sought her extinction. And yet, the grief of loss weighed on her, a constant ember threatening to ignite her fury. She swore to herself that one day the hunters would pay, but she also learned a crucial lesson. Vengeance alone was not wisdom. Her journey led her to the ruins of the Moonspire Citadel, a place said to hold the remnants of the first coven, destroyed by the king's ancestors. Among the ruins, Ilara discovered a hidden library, untouched by fire or time. Here, she found the ashes of the ancients, charred remains of witches burned long ago, yet infused with residual magic. By performing intricate rituals, she learned to commune with them, seeking guidance from voices long silent. Each spirit shared fragments of history, insight into forbidden spells, and warnings about the cost of power. Ilara's understanding deepened. Magic was not merely a tool, but a responsibility. Time passed, and whispers of the last, which began to circulate in towns and castles. Some called her a savior, others a demon. Merchants, thieves, and exiled scholars sought her, offering knowledge, artifacts, and alliances. But Ilara remained cautious, for she knew that trust was often a weapon sharper than any sword. Her reputation grew not through conquest, but through subtle interventions. Crops saved from blight, rivers restored, storms diverted. Yet, the king's advisors grew restless, fearful of the legend taking form. They dispatched assassins, spies, and mercenaries, but each attempt failed. Ilara had learned that the greatest magic was not always destruction. It was subtlety, patience, and the clever manipulation of perception. One night, under a crescent moon, Ilara was visited by a spirit unlike any she had encountered. It was the shade of Leora, the first witch to be executed by fire in the king's purges. Unlike other spirits, Leora was angry, twisted by centuries of torment, her essence a flickering flame of vengeance. She offered Ilara a bargain: absolute power to annihilate all who had wronged witches, in exchange for the purity of her heart. Ilara faced a choice she had long feared: succumb to rage, or continue her path of cautious stewardship. She reflected on her mother's words, the ashes of the ancients, and the countless innocents she had sworn to protect. With a whisper, she declined. Leora shrieked, a sound of cracking embers, and dissipated, leaving Ilara strengthened not by destruction, but by resolve. The king, sensing unrest and fearing rebellion, summoned his greatest generals to launch a final assault. Ilara, now a master of shadow and spirit, prepared herself. The battle was not fought with armies, but with cunning. She conjured illusions of fires, storms, and phantom legions that haunted the king's forces. Villages along the route of the army rose in subtle resistance, emboldened by her unseen hand. By the time the army reached her hidden sanctuary, morale had shattered. Soldiers fled, believing themselves cursed, while generals vanished under mysterious circumstances, lost to the spirits summoned by Ilara. The kingdom was spared a bloody confrontation, not through war, but through the fear and respect of magic unbound. Yet, victory came with a cost. Ilara, realizing that the world would never accept a witch as it did a king, made the ultimate sacrifice. She gathered the remaining ashes of the ancients, combining them with her own essence, and performed a spell that would erase her presence from mortal memory. Every trace of her being, the magic, the name, the legend, was absorbed into the earth and sky. Forests grew where villages once feared to tread, rivers sparkled where desolation had reigned, and winds whispered songs of a guardian unseen. The last witch vanished, leaving behind a legacy of wisdom, subtle protection, and a reminder that true power lies not in domination, but in harmony and restraint. Centuries passed. The world forgot her name, but magic persisted in quiet ways. In the gentle sway of a tree, in the sudden bloom of flowers in winter, in the unexpected rescue of lost travelers. Scholars debated the existence of the last witch, some dismissing her as myth, others swearing that they felt her presence. And somewhere in the quiet spaces between life and legend, the ashes of the last witch shimmered, a promise of guidance to those who would seek explanation. Ashes of the Last, which is a tale layered with symbolism, history, and philosophical exploration of power, morality, and legacy. At its core, it is a story about the last survivor of a persecuted group, a metaphor for resilience, memory, and the consequences of unchecked authority. The narrative explores themes of survival, loss, moral choice, and the interplay between visible and unseen forces in society. One, Ilara's journey as a coming-of-age and moral growth. Ilara's evolution from a sheltered child to the last, which symbolizes the maturation process under extreme circumstances. Her journey through forests, ruins, and spiritual encounters mirrors an internal journey of learning, discipline, and moral clarity. The story emphasizes that true mastery, whether magical or personal, requires patience, restraint, and understanding of consequences. Her choice to reject Leora's offer of vengeance highlights a central theme. Power without wisdom corrupts, while wisdom without hubris preserves. 2. Magic as a metaphor for knowledge and responsibility. In this story, magic represents knowledge, influence, and the ability to shape reality. The grimoire of shadows and the ashes of the ancients symbolize accumulated wisdom and the responsibility that comes with it. Ilara's ability to manipulate perception, summon spirits, and subtly protect communities illustrates that influence is most potent when used strategically rather than recklessly. The narrative portrays magic not as an end in itself, but as a tool for preserving life and promoting balance. 3. Historical allegory and social commentary. The kingdom's persecution of witches parallels historical witch hunts and the fear-driven oppression of marginalized groups. The story examines how power structures often exploit fear, spread misinformation, and suppress knowledge. Alara's survival and subtle interventions challenge this paradigm, demonstrating that courage, intelligence, and moral integrity can undermine tyranny without resorting to overt violence. Her eventual erasure from memory reflects how society often forgets the contributions of those who work quietly for good. 4. The role of spirits and ancestors. The ashes of the ancients and the shade of Leora introduce the theme of ancestral influence. Spirits serve as guides, warnings, and temptations, representing the weight of history and the consequences of past actions. Alara's interactions with these spirits explore the tension between honoring tradition and forging one's own path, emphasizing the importance of learning from history without being enslaved by it. 5. Sacrifice and legacy. Alara's final act, absorbing the ashes of the ancients and erasing herself from the world, symbolizes ultimate selflessness. She recognizes that true power lies not in domination or personal glory, but in the lasting well-being of the world she protects. The story argues that a meaningful legacy is one that benefits others, even if recognition is never received. This reinforces the recurring motif of subtle, unseen influence as a measure of true strength. 6. Themes of balance and morality. A recurring lesson is the balance between action and restraint, vengeance and mercy. Alara's moral choices, particularly her refusal to succumb to the shade of Leora's temptation, underscore the story's ethical framework. Power alone is insufficient without a guiding conscience. The story suggests that harmony between humans and nature, life and death, past and future, is the ultimate objective, and those who wield influence bear a profound responsibility. 7. Literary style and symbolism. The narrative employs a lyrical, mythic style reminiscent of classic folklore. Symbols such as the blood moon, ruins, ashes, and fire serve multiple purposes: markers of transformation, reminders of mortality, and metaphors for destruction and rebirth. Nature is almost a character itself, reflecting Alara's alignment with balance and her ability to manipulate her environment subtly. The story's pacing, alternating between action, introspection, and spiritual communion, mirrors the ebb and flow of power, loss, and growth. 8. The universal resonance of the tale. While set in a magical historical fantasy context, Ashes of the Last, which resonates on universal levels. It explores the human struggle with fear, grief, and moral choice, illustrating that courage, patience, and integrity are timeless virtues. Alara embodies resilience, wisdom, and compassion, qualities admired across cultures and eras. Her story also serves as a meditation on memory and forgetting, demonstrating how societies selectively preserve or erase history and influence. In conclusion, Ashes of the Last, which is both an enthralling fantasy narrative and a philosophical exploration of power, morality, and the unseen forces that shape history. Alara's journey is emblematic of the struggles faced by anyone carrying the weight of knowledge, responsibility, and the hope of leaving the world better than they found it. The story reminds readers that heroism is often quiet, legacy is often invisible, and true mastery is measured not in conquest, but in wisdom, restraint, and the courage to act rightly when no one watches. As the final embers fade, the legend of the last, which burns ever brighter. Her story reminds us that even in ruin, power lingers, and from every ending, something new is born. If you felt the fire of Ashes of the Last Witch, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more journeys into magic, myth, and mystery. Share your thoughts below. Do you believe her spirit still lingers in the shadows? Until next time, keep your candles lit and your heart open to the unknown. The ashes whisper, and the witch's tale is far from over.